FurryCon's starting to really grow in popularity lately too. I mean, it's not going to top out anime cons, but they are starting to game for old.
All right. We're all from out of state here, right?
Yep, just a little bit.
Yeah, so I flew here from Tallahassee, Florida, where I just moved. I moved to Tallahassee, Florida, and a week later, hurricane hit. Bad move.
That blows.
Boo. Alright. Obviously, you're.
I'm from Boston, and I flew in from Boston.
As well.
Oh yeah, I'm from Texas, and Southwest saves lives.
Yeah, because I moved to Tallahassee, and there's no Southwest. I would see this is where I normally recommend to fly Southwest because you get the 2 free check-in bags. But no, there's no Southwest in Tallahassee, so I have to use Delta, so I have to pay for my bags, which is a little annoying. It's going to add extra cost, which I'm going to talk about because there is a thing about how much do you pay for travel versus distance of cons, because you could vend at a local con. Like I said, almost every single major metropolitan area will have these types of cons. But if you want to try to do more cons, you have to kind of branch out. That is where you have a little degree of how much do you want your travel to cost and how much luggage do you want to bring, because that's the difference. So for example, when I was living in Austin, Texas, and I wanted to vend at a con in San Antonio, like San Japan, I would normally take the megabus to go from Austin to San Japan. And that megabus would be as cheap as $1 sometimes, $5 to $20. So it's a really, really cheap range, but megabuses will normally only let me bring in one small carry-on bag and one backpack. So not enough, if you guys ever see my display, to bring out that stuff. So that's why, even though Dallas and Austin are only 3 hours apart driving, I normally fly into Dallas when I do cons there because I'm able to bring a little bit more. The other thing you could do is ride a train. So some areas have dedicated Amtrak rail systems. So I actually have taken an Amtrak from Austin to Dallas, and normally trains let you bring a little bit more. One check-in bag, one carry-on bag, and trains normally range from about $30 to $50 in price. And then once you get up to flying, you get 2 check-in bags and 2 carry-on bags. Some airlines, like I said, have to pay for it. But if you get a plane costs a round trip for reasonably under $500. But if you want to bring a lot more, you have to drive your car. And that's going to cost a lot, because even though you could bring a lot more, you now have to start factoring the cost of how long the trip is going to be. So how much gas am I going to spend? Is it going to be a few days trip? Do I have to stop at a hotel overnight? Am I going to have to buy food on the road? That's going to add up a lot.
Parking.
And then if you're like our friend Shotzi, you have to drive a truck or a van everywhere, and that's going to cost a lot more if you need a big display like that. You see fursuit makers have big displays.
Yeah.
But most of us, we fly it, right? Yeah.
If it's after 10 hours, yeah. That hit my fly mine. Because one thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration on car costs is they like, oh, it's just the gas, and I'll just sleep at rest stops. Or they don't think of the depreciation, what they're doing to beat up their car. So, for like instance, I would sit here and be like, okay, so flight here is $250, and to ship everything in and out is $120. But the gas is only $200. But then when I actually figured out the cost of my car, which is 30 cents a kilometer to operate, it comes out that my car is taking $1,000 worth of damage. So obviously flying is way better. Yeah, it's about 2,000 kilometers.
And yeah, so like I said, shipping to the hotel is a good idea. Some hotels do not charge you. Most of the hotels I've shipped stuff to do not charge you. Some might charge you a storage fee or a pickup fee, but most don't. But you can try to ship to the hotel. Shipping to a convention center is a little bit more expensive. And you fly with Southwest like I used to. Tell us why you like Southwest.
It's hard when you're vending because you have to plan, like the cost of how much stuff you're going to bring. You have to estimate what you're going to bring and what will sell versus your display, which can be just as important. You need to know. For example, for most conventions, I'll usually bring this gigantic marquee, which takes up a lot of space. But usually if I bring family members, we can bring a bunch of extra luggage, we can afford this extra space, and it boosts sales. So sometimes bringing a bigger display, kind of factoring that in, can be just as effective as bringing more stock. So Southwest allows 2 free carry-on bags under 50 pounds, 2 like a backpack and a
Yeah,
purse
two
of some
carry-ons.
kind.
2 check-ins, a carry-on,
And a personal item that
Yeah.
and that personal item could be a backpack.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
everything.
That's
the
where I put my
carry-on
heavy
is what you
items.
want to put all your
Yeah.
heavy stuff in, because unless it's all metal, it'll just go through and you're just carrying a 130-pound thing across the airport, and they don't weigh that at all.
Yeah, that's where all my pins and cards go. It's in my bags.
That's where all my dice and constant stops at TSA because they think they're all little batteries or something.
Oh yeah. So then also when you find an airline that you're really good with, start building up the air miles. So for example, I flew with Southwest for all my cons for the last almost 10 years. And I have at least 6 free flights I still have to use. And I've been upgraded to an A-lister because I have flown so many times now I can't use it, sadly. So I got now that I'm stuck with Delta in Tallahassee, I got a American Express Delta rewards card. So now that I spend, I can get Delta points.
I use JetBlue because I don't like my knees up to my ears on half these lines.
Alright, so after your first few vending experiences, like you'll start trying to vend everything. You say, oh, these guys are selling buttons and badges and wall scrolls and prints. I'm going to do the same thing. You'll notice some of your items start selling more than others, and that's when you start taking note of things. So for example, at BronyCon 2014, 2015, I looked at the amount of money each item brought in for sales, and if you look at the purple and black, these were the amount of money my tarot cards and card games were going for. Don't do tarot cards, that's my thing. But if you see that,
don't step in people's niche markets.
but if you see
Bad
that,
idea.
if you see that red little sliver, that's how much sales Prince were bringing in for me. Despite Prince taking up most of my booth and taking up a lot of weight, Prince brought in less money than buttons were making for me. So once I figured that out, I decided to cut out the Prince. And then that's how I basically started working. I started cutting out anything that was making me less than like 10%. I started cutting out and focus on the big ones. In fact, I was playing around with the numbers this year. He's probably going to see it because he's my tax accountant. But I looked at 3 of my cons this year. BabsCon, Everfree Northwest, and St. Louis Crystal Fair, a very, very small PonyCon, and 2 very big PonyCons. But looking at the numbers, you can see different items selling different percentage. So for example, the blue are my tarot cards. At BabsCon, I barely sold any tarot cards. At Crystal Fair and Everfree, I saw a lot more tarot cards. But if you look, my top 4 items, the ones in blue, gray, orange, and yellow, they all collectively made up 75% of my sales. So after that, I started looking about what am I going to focus on for BronyCon. And I noticed all these 4 items added up together exactly make up 75%. So that's what I started focusing on when I moved around for BronyCon. I guess you guys have probably similar experiences seeing what items selling for you.
Yeah.
Like you're famous for your jerseys now.
Jerseys, and now the polos all of a sudden are making a huge blast on this because it's my newest item. Some also to keep track of is the fact that new versus old. Just because like prints may be waning for one person doesn't mean they're waning for everyone. They might be just shifting focus. Like maybe everyone has Chocolate Pony on their wall, but no one has another artist that's coming in on their wall. So it's really just an ever-changing market for yourself as well.
I think a good example is when I started at PonyCons, I was one of the first to make coins and flags. But the coins and flags were barely selling, so I stopped for about 3 years, and all of a sudden some other people started selling coins and flags, and I was like, wait, that was my original thing. How am I not making money off it? So I moved back to coins and flags, and once again, they became one of my best sellers again. So sometimes something that, if you were the, sometimes I think there's a concept called the early bird does not get the worm, because if you're too early on something, it might not even be recognizable enough that it gets traction.
First is the best.
Yes. And what do you find is one of your best-selling items?
It's always hard because, you never know from one convention to the next. You know, some people, especially if you go to the same convention time and time again. So, for example, Ciderfest for a lot of people is kind of their backyard convention. So, I'll see a lot of regulars here, and it'll be cool to show them what new stuff I have. But at the same time, the market becomes smaller and smaller because they'll be like, oh yeah, I've already got this print, I've already got that. So you have to always find new ways to surprise, and a lot of people don't even have wall space nowadays. So you have to find the little weird things that everybody's into.
And all the time, what people are looking for will change every time. Like obviously, when the show first started out, it's Twilight. Now it's the Kirins that are all over the place, and You just have to keep
Glimmer
it
for a
on.
period and Sunset for a period were really popular.
So it always changes. Don't think just because it worked for 1 year, it's going to work every year. Because interests all fluctuate every time, and a lot of times it's just a guess as to what's going to be big this year. And usually, just a quick check online, keeping with the research, you'll see what people are like blowing up about.
See the latest polls and stuff.
Yeah, everything. Like if it's on Facebook plastered, like how's that? You pretty much know that's what people are going to be looking for.
Because originally, I think when a lot of us started vending, Applejack was the worst selling in the main six. But then within like 2 or 3 years, Applejack quickly took 3rd place out of the best selling ponies for me, like right after Rainbow Dash and Twilight.
Yeah. Octavia, last year's PonyCon, out of nowhere, I sold out of Octavia jerseys, and I'm like, and I still have all of the Rainbow Dash. What?
Yeah.
So it really, sometimes is a challenge.
I'm just saying, if you're talking about exploring a niche market, we need some more flim flam art out there. Just
And that leads
I could make those
perfectly.
into jerseys.
Yeah, that leads perfectly into our next part. Innovate. Find niche ideas, niche interests, or unique takes on making your art. So have a unique item that's signature to you, that's novel, that no one's done before. Even taking a product that's commonplace that everyone else is doing, do your own unique twist on it. So for example, everyone have prints. Do your prints holographic, or do your prints glow in the dark? Everyone has buttons. Maybe put googly eyes on your button, or sparkles on your buttons, and your buttons stand out.
I use glitter on your jerseys.
Yeah. So you could even take things that everyone else is selling and give it your own unique touch. So for example, I like to use my example. Now people know me for tarot cards. Tarot cards just were one of the things I had starting out with Pony Fan. And once I realized everyone was liking my tarot cards, people came up to my booth knowing me as a tarot guy. That's what I focused on. Also, don't be afraid to try new things. So, for example, PonyCon 1 year, I tried out the acrylic stands. This was before anyone else was doing. Again, this is another early bird thing I tried to do. Anime cons were just starting to pick up on acrylic stands. I gave it a shot. People liked it, but they didn't really sell, which was surprising because, for example, these stands, when I posted on Twitter, everyone was raving about them. They wanted to buy it, and they barely sold. I had these for about 3 years now, and I'm still have a big stock on them. So sometimes it does not work, but don't be afraid. Don't let it deter you. Don't be afraid to innovate.
Small batches sometimes work, and sometimes it's as simple as like a little price change. Like what will often happen is you'll bring some out on the market, but the price is just like $2 off. And sometimes it happens with my jerseys, and it was something that happened recently. My jerseys were an average of $29, and people were like, and then I brought it down to $27, and they started selling like crazy. $2, all the difference, and it didn't. And honestly, the fact that I'm selling more, it didn't hurt the bottom line at all. It improved it. So it could be several different factors of one thing.
Like for example, this was a PonyCon a few years ago. I thought this was a unique, novel take. Have a pouch that the zipper was the tail. Like I thought it was a unique idea. I put a lot of work into it, investing in the charms. I had to order charms and the wallet separately. They barely sold yet. These dumb badges ended up being one of my biggest sellers, which was really, really strange. And it's like I might put more work into this, buy this, but no, I really like the badges.
Yeah.
And that's
Why would you hang that on your wall? That's terrifying.
That's why we also recommend you have smaller items. I call these impulse buy items. These are very, very small $1, $2 items that you kind of put in front of your checkout window. So when people are buying your big price items, they feel inclined to add some smaller items to it. So buttons and ribbons are really, really safe.
And sometimes what I use for a lot of my smaller items in the industry, they can be known as lost leaders. They're things you actually don't make any money on. Sometimes you lose money. But I'll do things like I'll say, if you buy 6 of these, I'll throw in one of these for nothing. And sometimes little things like the buttons have value. People see them as $3 each. If you're saying, yeah, if you buy a wall scope for $50, I'll give you like 3 or 4 buttons for nothing. And they're like, oh wow, another $7 for free. And it maybe cost you 50 cents and you lost the 50 cents because you gave it away for free, but you just sold a $50 item. Sometimes this is like an example of what I use it for, or you can use it sometimes if you have numbers that's it's $27 and you just conveniently have a $3 button and they don't want to deal with the change. They'll just buy the $3 button just to make it $80-30. So there's a couple ways you can use these small items.
Yeah, it's all about experimenting. Some people, I know for me when I'm hunting around at cons, I'm trying to spread around my money. Anything over $5 is too much for me, and then I get really really picky. So anything that's small that draws you in will then eventually turn the customer on to the rest of your booth. Oh, look at this bigger one. Well, I think I could invest this. It gives you time to